Hey guys, Paul here at Impulsive Culinarian, and in this video I want to talk to you about a gourmet vegetarian spaghetti sauce recipe. Now what makes it gourmet? Gourmet. Well, when I think of a vegetarian spaghetti sauce, typical, it usually has big chunks of vegetables, sort of to advertise the fact that it's vegetarian or vegan. That's not always a good thing. That can work against you when you've got kids, okay, or fussy eaters of any kind. Big chunk of zucchini, I'll just, have some soup. And so what I'm going to do with this recipe is show you that it's important to remove the whole vegetarian chunky aspect of it. This makes it much more appealing to all kinds of people, kids and fussy eaters alike. So when you don't really know what's in it and it just tastes good, you say, whatever, I won't ask, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to make everything small. We're going to blitz ingredients, we're going to mince stuff. It's all going to be just part of the sauce, and it's all going to disappear in the beautiful flavors that ensue. I want to tell you that we're going to be doing this recipe based on each can of sauce. So when you get yourself, a can of 796 mils, all right, that's 3 1/3 cups of crushed tomatoes. So the recipe is going to be based on that. If you want to double, triple, quadruple, whatever, I often double it just when I'm making a quick batch. Sometimes I've done up to ×6, when I want to make a big batch and save a bunch in the freezer. So we're going to be going per can of sauce. If you're using garden tomatoes, excellent, all right? That tastes fantastic. Nothing beats fresh from the garden. The thing about these crushed tomatoes is that there's a lot less water in these than there are in your garden tomatoes. So instead of using 3 1/3 cups of your own garden crushed tomatoes, I would start off with 4 or 5 and let them reduce in your spaghetti pot just to get some of that moisture out, and then come back down to the just over 3 cups worth of crushed tomatoes. But the taste, yeah, absolutely, I've done it. It's unmistakable. Really, really tasty stuff. All right, so here's the rest of the ingredients you'll need. So this recipe is based on ingredients per can of crushed tomatoes. Now, a typical can, one of the big ones, is 28 ounces or 796 milliliters. All right, so get yourself 1 can of, I would say, high quality crushed tomatoes. And by that I mean something that you've tried that you enjoy. Okay, there's some that aren't as good as others, so you be the judge. You want to get 1 red or orange sweet bell pepper, 1 small eggplant, 1 large onion finely chopped, 1 large clove of garlic, 1 regular package of mushrooms. They usually come in packs of 225 grams or a quarter pound, 1 1/2 tablespoons of sugar, 1 tablespoon of fresh oregano finely chopped, and 1 tablespoon of fresh basil finely chopped, and then a teaspoon of kosher salt and some freshly ground black pepper to taste. So that's the ingredient list per can. I'll be honest, I'm doubling for this recipe because I need some sauce for the week. Okay, let's get cooking. So welcome to part 2 of the fall menu series, guys. It's getting cold outside, windows are closed, furnace isn't on yet, but it's getting there, okay? So up here in Montreal, beautiful time to start making some good home cooking, all right? Some fall weather cooking. And so in this recipe, we're doing spaghetti sauce. I'm gonna double it up, so that means I'm using 2 cans, all right? 2 28 ounce cans of crushed tomatoes. Sometimes they call them ground tomatoes, depending on where you come from. So the first thing you want to do is get a large enough spaghetti pot to hold all of your final sauce, and get that over minimum heat on your stovetop. Now, in lieu of a lid, what I like to use is this, a splatter screen, okay? Whatever size you've got, put that on top of the sauce for the entire duration to avoid too much cleanup on your stovetop. So again, guys, if you're using fresh tomatoes from your garden or from the store, it tastes great. The taste is unbeatable. You want to use a bit more than what you get in a can is 3 1/3 cups. You want to use 4 or 5 cups of fresh ground tomatoes and let them simmer in the pot so that it reduces and get that moisture out. Otherwise, get your cans of crushed tomatoes into the pan. Okay, so I'll warn you, that was the simple part. Now let the gourmet ingredient process begin. The next ingredient is sweet peppers. Now these are good on their own, of course, but nothing beats a roasted sweet bell pepper. So what we're going to do is we're going to get our broiler on high, all right, and we're going to start chopping these up in order to put them in that broiler. Now the right position for your rack inside the oven is as high up as it will go. You want those peppers to be right under the broiler, so get your rack in the top position. So there's a few ways to roast a pepper. If you Google it, you'll see for yourself. What I like to do is very simple process. First, I start by decapitating my pepper. I take off the bottom and the top, and those are two flat pieces that are going to go on my baking sheet. And I remove that little green centerpiece right there. So next you're left with this beautiful pepper, which is easy to cut the sides and without having to fuss with that stuff in the middle. So within seconds, I've got the top and the bottom piece, which are nice and flat, and the four sides, which are also nice and beautifully flat, and that core, which I can basically put in the compost, and I don't have to fiddle around. So if you're doubling or tripling like I am, do that for all your peppers. So now that you got your sweet peppers into nice manageable flat pieces, you want to get a standard size cookie sheet, okay, and line it with tin foil. I know, if you've seen my other videos, you know how much I dislike having food touch the tin foil. This is one of the few occasions when I will do it, on account of I'm dealing with a broiler at very high temperature and parchment paper ain't gonna cut it, okay? So lay these skin side up onto the baking sheet. Nice and evenly spaced on the baking sheet and ready to go under the broiler. So no other processing, guys, no oil, no salt, no other ingredients, just as they are, raw, okay, on the tin foil, in your baking sheet, top rack, under the high broiler for 8 minutes. Now this one, you definitely want to set a timer. I highly recommend, guys, please set a timer, because not that it's ever happened to me, but you certainly don't want to forget anything under the broiler, okay? 8 minutes. So while your peppers are broiling, don't start any big projects, okay? Make sure to keep an eye on those just to make sure, absolutely sure. But you can go ahead and peel your eggplant. Now, because I'm doubling my recipe, I'm using one large one instead of two small ones. So peel accordingly. So next, you want to cut your eggplant into long slices. You're going to be blitzing this later, so don't worry about the size of the cut. Just get a few big, thick slices out of it. Okay, so 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch, something like that. Next, get yourself another baking sheet and line that with parchment paper. Then you want to arrange your eggplant slices into one even flat layer on the baking dish and get yourself a little bowl of olive oil. If you've ever roasted eggplant, you know that it takes a lot of oil, okay? So I've got myself probably just under a 1/4 cup. I'm going to take a little barbecue brush and I'm going to baste my eggplant with the olive oil. Then season generously with kosher salt and freshly ground black pepper. Then you want to flip them over, repeat the same process on the other side. So I just want to show you after 8 minutes, I've got some good charring. There's one of them there that's really well done, but there's a few others that could do with some more charring. So I'm going to leave this in for another 2 minutes, but definitely with a timer. 2-minute timer.
Okay, 2 minutes and counting.
1/4 cup of oil, not enough. Eggplants are about as thirsty as I am on Wine's Day, okay? That's how bad it is. Just keep the bottle out. It's easier. Baste away. All right, there's some freshly seasoned eggplant slices ready to go in the oven. As soon as my peppers are done roasting. Take them out. Okay, that's much better. Each and every single pepper is very charred, just the way I like it, so that's perfect. I'm going to turn off my broiler and put these aside to cool for a second. So another one of the very common tricks that you'll be able to find online if you Google is how to peel a pepper easily. Get them in an airtight container and let them cool. The moisture and all the humidity inside is definitely going to start separating the peel from the pepper. It's going to be so much easier. So once they've cooled enough to touch, get them into an airtight container and set them aside. So don't let them cool too long. You want them to be nice and steaming hot like that. Close the lid, set them aside. Those suckers will be easy to peel in no time. Okay, so now that the stress of a high heat broiler is done, we can preheat our oven to 400 degrees. It might already be there. That broiler has heated up the oven so much, it's already at 400 degrees. So I can go ahead and put my eggplant slices into the oven center rack. So we want to roast those eggplants for 20 minutes in a 400-degree oven, and then check them to make sure that they're done enough, and flip them over, bake them for another 10 to 15 minutes, depending on the size of the slices that you've cut. So like any project, we're going to get rid of what's left of the most complicated tasks, the mushrooms. Now, you know I like to peel my mushrooms, okay? So that's a personal choice. You don't have to do that. Just brush them off if you like. But what I want to make sure to do is I don't want to have a big slimy piece of mushroom in my vegetarian sauce. So I'm going to use the food processor to blitz these down into the tiniest pieces possible, and I'm going to saute them in a frying pan just to make sure that I get rid of all the moisture and they start to take on this beautiful, nutty, sort of roasted flavor. Really delicious ingredient. So let's get peeling and chopping. So once you've peeled or cleaned off your mushrooms, get them in the food processor in batches and mince them up until they're really nice and fine. So after a trip in the food processor, there's the nice mushrooms, all freshly ground. And once you saute these in the frying pan and get rid of the moisture, beautiful nutty flavor. Such a big difference. That's what's contributing to the gourmet. All right, now that you've ground up your mushrooms, set those aside and let's get us some onions. So, depending what's available at your grocery store, I couldn't find large onions this week. What can I tell you? So every large onion is being replaced by 2 medium-sized onions. And because I'm doubling my recipe, 4 onions. Now these, I'm not going to do in the food processor. I want to chop these up nice and fine. But you can blitz them in the food processor if you like. It's entirely up to you. Frankly, I'm being lazy with the cleanup. And voila! Onions, finely chopped. Might as well mince up the garlic. Okay, a couple of cloves of minced garlic. Set that aside with your onions. Clean off the board. Eggplant, side 1 is done. Let's get them out. So you want to have a look at the underside of those pieces of eggplant. And I see that they're not really roasted. I think I cut them kind of thick. So I'm going to pop them in for another 10 minutes on the same side. It's really worthwhile to let that first side broil as long as it takes to get a nice brown crust. If you've cut your slices thick like I have, I got lazy. Okay, I wanted them to fit on one pan. Then leave them in a little bit longer. And then as soon as they brown, flip them over, another 10-15 minutes, and you're good to go. Now we're in the business of sauteing these vegetables. So get a great big non-stick frying pan. You can start with whichever vegetable you like. Personally, I like to do the onions and the garlic first. So get your non-stick frying pan on medium-low heat and get a couple of tablespoons of olive oil into the pan. While your pan is heating up, chop up your fresh herbs. So every fall, when I'm starting to cook stuff with fresh herbs that are just the last ones in the garden, I get that bittersweet feeling of, oh, I'm not going to have my fresh herbs anymore for the whole winter. That sounds like a project. Indoor herb garden. Yeah. Oh, what a smell. Nothing like freshly chopped herbs. Right out of the garden, too. So chop them up as finely as you like, depending on who in your family is adverse to little flecks of fresh herbs in their sauce. Otherwise, leave them as big as you like to show that you put in the effort, guys. So once your nonstick skillet is nice and hot, get those onions in there. Let them saute for around 10 minutes. Eggplant, part 1, take 2. This is looking better. I can tell right away. Yes, got some nice browning under there. Can you see that? Ooh, that's hot stuff. Okay, so flip your eggplants over and get them back in for another 10, probably 15 minutes. Oh, those smell and look amazing. Secret ingredient, eggplant. So those are deliciously browned, guys, on side 1. I'm about to put them in for a second batch on the second side, but you see that beautiful browning. That's gorgeous. It's exactly what you want. Amazing flavor, and when we blitz these up, no one's going to be any wiser that there's eggplant in the sauce. All right, so back in they go, another 15 minutes. So when there's a lull in the program, okay, you can always go and check on your roasted peppers and make sure that they're nice and cool to the touch. Go ahead and peel them. So in case you didn't believe me, this basically comes right off. Beautiful. That's what you want. Peel them off. Peppers are good. Roasted peppers are freaking awesome. While your peppers have been cooling, if there's any juice, keep that, put it in the sauce. All right, so once they're peeled, you can go ahead and finely chop your roasted peppers. So once you start to get a nice little browning on your onions, go ahead and add the garlic and saute that together for another minute or two. So once your onions have gotten a nice, beautiful, golden, light brown color and the garlic is fragrant, you can take that off the heat and go ahead and put it in your sauce. So now that the onions are in the sauce, I just want to show you guys a beautiful browning on the underside of those eggplants. That's exactly what you want. I would consider those done. So I've turned off my oven. I'm going to wait until these eggplants cool off a little bit before I blitz them in the food processor. Roasted peppers are now in the pot. Let's mix them up. This is starting to look like a sauce, guys, okay? So the goal of having this on the low heat is not to boil it. We just want to keep everything nice and warm so that the flavors can meld, all right? So keep that screen on the top in case you do get the occasional bursting bubble. You'll smell the mushrooms. All the water has been evaporated and now they're starting to brown. Let's have a look. What a beautiful transformation, okay? There's no more water left in those mushrooms, and you can just see every time that I leave it for around 20 seconds, I get a little bit more browning on the mushrooms. So let them brown considerably, okay? Give them at least 5 minutes of browning before you add them into the sauce. So while the mushrooms are browning and our eggplants have sufficiently cooled, let's get them in the food processor. All right, now blitz them up so that they are no longer recognizable. Well, look at that. Eggplant puree, okay? Not one even tiny chunk left. Nobody's ever going to notice that there was eggplant in this, and it's not discernible as a flavor on its own. But this paste, what an incredible addition. That's part of the gourmet of this vegetarian sauce. Let's get it in the pot. Eggplant puree, roasted, salted and peppered. It tastes so good, guys. Get that in your sauce. Guys, it's really hard to burn mushrooms. And in fact, the longer you cook them, the nuttier and more flavorful they get, okay? Cook them a little bit longer than you think they need to be cooked. And you're gonna end up with this incredible result. Let's have a look. So I've let these mushrooms go for quite some time over medium heat in the skillet, and they haven't burned. They just got nuttier and nuttier. The flavor is unbelievable, okay? So I'm gonna say those are ready, and turn off the heat and get those into the sauce. Mix it all together. So many great flavors going on right there. Now, I have not added salt, pepper, sugar, herbs, anything. And already, the mixture of vegetables and tomato puree that I've got in there, it's sort of indiscernible. There's no like, it's too tomatoey, it's too eggplant, it's good. What an amazing base, okay? Very, very flavorful. Now, we're gonna season it and make it perfect. So there's not much left to add, guys. It's basically sugar, salt, and your fresh herbs. And the trick, of course, is to let that simmer for at least a half an hour, up to 2 hours on the lowest possible setting on your stovetop, and just let all of those flavors marry together. Wow, it's gonna be fantastic. So I've always been a little bit heavy-handed on the sugar. So per can, it's, for me, a very generous 1.5 tablespoons. But I've never found it too sweet for adults. It's not a kid's sauce, so you be the judge. 1.5 equal or generous tablespoons per can. And per can, it's 1 teaspoon of salt. This I wouldn't go too heavy-handed on, so I'm gonna add a sort of a scant tablespoon because I'm doubling my recipe. That's it. Get it in the pot. Seasoning, fresh herbs, and of course, freshly ground black pepper to taste. What an incredibly delicious sauce, if I do say so myself. I'm a little bit biased, but I've been making this for years, guys, and not once has it disappointed, okay? So you can use this as a starter. You can add meat, you can do whatever you like to it, but I highly recommend you try the recipe as is, give it a shot, see what you think, and I have a feeling that you too will also not be disappointed. Gotta give it a try. Right on. Those fresh herbs, what a big difference. Use fresh herbs, guys. Get your hands on them. Even if it's in the winter, you go get them at the grocery store. What a big difference the fresh herbs make. So the last step of this whole process, just let it sit, guys, on the lowest heat possible, at least 30 minutes, preferably a couple of hours. Then all you have to do is turn off the heat, let it cool down so it's, cool enough to manage. put it into little containers, pop it in the freezer, or invite a bunch of people over and have some spaghetti, okay? Another thing you might want to do is make my meatball recipe, all right? Add that as a separate dish. That way you can please everybody. You got the vegetarian sauce. And those that want meat, no problem. Pop in some amazingly delicious meatballs into that, and you got yourself a party ready to go. Guys, my name is Paul from Impulsive Culinarian. If you've enjoyed this video, hit the like button, and more importantly, hit the subscribe button, guys. Every week, every Saturday is a brand new recipe video coming out for you to check out and hopefully enjoy. And another thing too, if you like wine, join me every Wednesday, or AKA Winesday, where I'm going to be sharing a brand new bottle of wine with you all and doing a weekly update just to let you know what's happening in the Impulsive Culinarian world. So guys, I hope you had a good time. I certainly did. I love making sauce, and I'm going to catch you in the next video. I've been known to bust out some nacho chips in the middle of the night and just, eat the sauce. I do it. That's what I do.